All right, let's get right into this because we're looking at a fascinating and pretty tragic ecological mystery. We're talking about a killer that's been stalking one of Pakistan's most vital trees for more than 100 years. It's leaving behind a trail of devastation that's threatening entire industries and ecosystems. This is the story of the Shisham tree and the desperate fight to figure out what's killing it.
And just to give you a sense of the scale here, look at that number, 80%. In the hardest hit areas, like along the canal banks where these trees were planted by the thousand, the mortality rate has hit 80%. I mean, this isn't just a few sick trees here and there. It's a full-blown epidemic that has wiped out huge, huge forests.
And you have to understand, we're not talking about just any old tree. The Shisham, or Tali as it's called locally, is a total powerhouse both economically and ecologically. It's literally the backbone of the furniture industry. It helps farmers by enriching the soil, and its deep roots are crucial for preventing erosion. So when the Shisham starts dying, the ripple effects are just enormous. Now, scientists have a name for all this. They call it Shisham decline syndrome. But, naming the problem, that was the easy part. The real mystery, the thing that stumped researchers for decades, was figuring out what was actually causing it. The clues were all over the place because, get this, the tree was dying in a bunch of different ways. Think of this as the crime scene report. Investigators were finding 3 totally different patterns of death. Some trees would suddenly get wilt, a super fast death, sometimes in just a month. Others had dieback, a slow, creeping death that would start at the tips of the branches and work its way down over years. And then some just went into a general decline, slowly losing their energy. So you see the problem, right? With 3 different MOs, how could you possibly find a single culprit? So this kicked off what was basically a century-long ecological whodunit. You had scientists acting like detectives, chasing down this invisible killer. Or maybe killers. And just like in any good mystery, the investigation was packed with false leads, cases of mistaken identity, and a whole lot of surprising twists. The hunt started way back in 1915, with a fungus called Ganoderma being fingered as the main suspect. But the trees kept dying. Then, boom, 1998 hits, and a catastrophic epidemic just explodes across the country. This sparks a whole new wave of research, and for years, another fungus, Fusarium saloni, becomes public enemy number 1. But it wasn't until very, very recently, with modern genetic tools, that the real prime suspect was finally cornered. And here's where the story takes a huge turn. The major plot twist was the realization that these fungi, they weren't the masterminds at all. They were just accomplices, Opportunistic killers that were just finishing off trees that were already weakened by a much bigger problem. And this is where it gets really weird. It led them to this central paradox. The trees were dying from both not enough water and too much water. How does that work? Well, in some places, drought was stressing them out, making them vulnerable. But along the canals, where they were dying in droves, the constant water seepage from the canals was literally drowning their roots. And that was the aha moment. It was the key clue. The Shisham, a tree that naturally loves riverbanks, was being planted in all the wrong places. So with this new understanding of the environment, scientists used advanced genetic sequencing and finally unmasked the primary killer just this year. A newly identified and named species, Ceratocystis dalbergicans. This thing is an aggressive fungus that attacks the tree's water transport system. It even leaves behind these telltale bluish streaks under the bark. It's the agent behind that fast, deadly wilt. But, and this is the key, it thrives on trees that are already stressed out. Okay, so the mystery is pretty much solved. But now we have to look at the fallout. Because the death of this one single species of tree has created this absolutely devastating ripple effect across Pakistan's economy and its environment. And this chart just lays it out perfectly. It illustrates the whole problem. On public lands like canal banks and roadsides, where the trees are often neglected and under all that environmental stress, mortality is through the roof. But look over at private farmlands, where they're properly cared for and irrigated, the death rate is less than 10%. It's proof. Management matters. A lot. The economic fallout from this has been nothing short of catastrophic. Pakistan has a world-renowned furniture industry, and it almost completely depends on shisham wood. With the supply of good timber just drying up, prices have gone sky high. Now manufacturers are being forced to use lower-quality wood or other substitutes, and that threatens the whole country's reputation for craftsmanship and puts thousands of jobs on the line. But this story isn't just about decline and disaster. It's also about recovery. There's a massive scientific and national effort underway right now
to fight for the future of the Xishan tree.
And the recovery plan is this really smart, multi-layered defense. First, and this is the most important one, proper site management. No more planting these trees in waterlogged soils. Simple. Second, they're using biological control, basically good fungi to fight the bad ones. Third, using targeted chemicals to save trees that are already sick. And finally, the ultimate long-term solution, breeding a whole new generation of super-resistant Xishan trees.
And that long-term solution? It's actually now within reach. It's incredible. Scientists have identified over 9,000 plant resistance genes inside the Xishan's DNA. This is basically a genetic treasure map. It's allowing them to breed new varieties that can naturally fight off the disease, which could ensure the tree's survival for generations to come.
The fight to save this one tree is also part of a much bigger story. It plugs directly into Pakistan's incredibly ambitious 10 billion tree tsunami project. This is a massive reforestation effort to restore lands all across the country, and making sure the Xishan is planted wisely is now a critical piece of that huge national ecological puzzle.
And all of this leaves us with one final, crucial question. The story of the Xishan is really a powerful lesson for all of us. It's not enough to just have these big, ambitious goals, to plant billions of trees. We have to do it with intelligence and with a real respect for nature's rules. The real challenge moving forward is making sure our ambition to regreen the planet is matched by the wisdom to actually get it right.